here with Marcel Carnoza. He is a filmmaker and all-around awesome guy. He's here to talk about basically the mask mandate and COVID-19 restrictions and specifically relating to member spam and things like that. So yeah, just get right into it, I guess.
Sure. Yeah, there's so many ways to take something like this. I think
good like the situation.
Sure. I mean, where we're at right now, and specifically yesterday, this was announced, and at 2 p.m. today on this Friday, they're going more into detail. But so currently in Ontario, you can't go anywhere unless you have proof of vaccination. I mean, you can go to a church, you can go to the grocery store, but anywhere in public life, anywhere you can socialize, and then a lot of businesses for their employees aren't allowing you to work if you don't have a vaccine. They're also trying to fire people for that, rather like a dismissal with cause, so you wouldn't be able to get EI, employment insurance. But if people can afford a lawyer, they can usually get them to overturn that. If they can't, then you're out of luck. So of course, like everything else, it hurts.
You get fired to get no EI just for not maybe agreeing with the vaccine or whatever.
Yeah, just not wanting to get it, or even not wanting to tell your employer it. You might. There's definitely people who even got it who just say my medical information is my medical information, and that's that. So it's a sticky situation. And here now today, they originally had said that these restrictions were going to end January 17th of 2022. Now they've announced that it's going to go on indefinitely. They haven't set a date anymore. So it's unlike actually our lockdowns before, where our lockdowns, they would say, are going to last 2 weeks, maybe a bit longer, but then they would extend them by 2 weeks. They would always put a date on it that they're extending it by, even though it would be 2 weeks for 4 months long. This one, they didn't even say that. They didn't say, you know what, we need an extra month. No, it's just indefinite. You're going to need to provide proof of vaccine. And now it seems like they're going to mandate the QR code aspect of this. So you have to either have a phone on you, which obviously could affect our elderly population or anyone without a phone, or you have to download the PDF, print it out, and keep that on you. So, I mean, yeah, you now essentially have to ask the government for permission to go anywhere, which I think is a bad situation.
That sounds pretty I don't know, fascist, pretty right wing, really.
Yeah.
That's not even what I want to say. That's kind of like not actually the word for that. Like totalitarian. Yeah. Actually the word for that.
Yeah, I mean it's an unprecedented move, and that's the thing. When you try and compare this to other things, and people get into like the Nazi comparison, people get into wherever, and you can make some claims, but the problem is fascism or authoritarian.
That's why I said not fascism, because compared to like the Nazi Germany, not really, because that only applied to like certain like populations or whatever that they were like oppressing.
Yeah, of course.
But like totalitarianism, like that's like a thing that like China would do. You know what I mean?
Right.
That's the thing you see North Korea doing. You know what I mean? So.
And I guess that's the thing. Totalitarianism, authoritarianism, whatever you want to call it, it's never going to look the exact same. So you have to have something to compare to. But at the end of the day, you don't want to compare it always to something concrete, because then people can point out the flaws of, oh, well, it's not exactly like that. People aren't at your door with a gun, so why are you worrying yet? And there's definitely conspiracy theorists, quote unquote, who were talking about this from basically day one of COVID restrictions. I didn't believe it back then. I didn't believe the idea of a vaccine passport. And I mean, here it is. Like it's happening. The conspiracy has turned true. And so just like with other things that come to light, like Jeffrey Epstein or whatever, every conspiracy that comes to light, gives a bit more credence to the next conspiracy, because you're like, well, okay, that one was right, that one was right, that one was half right. I mean, it doesn't make sense to push these people to the edges of society and ban them from social networks. What if they're right 1 in 10 times? Is there no value in that? Yeah. So I mean, we're at the point, and you saw my post where I know people who have fled back to home countries in like Eastern Europe, countries where their parents or their grandparents fled from, either totalitarian leaders before. So it's kind of come full circle for them, which is very wild. I have friends who fled to Mexico, other places, saying that I don't think I'll ever be able to come back to Canada. And when the government says something like indefinite, which they're saying right now about this proof of vaccination, I don't blame them. These are skilled people too. These are not like these are not people who are hurting Canada in any way by being here. So yeah, it's very strange, and I think something that would appeal to maybe people that listen to this or your listeners is the kind of extreme like late stage capitalism aspect of this whole thing, right? Which is
and it's vaccine mandate. Like you could hear that over a loudspeaker, like in a train station. You know what I mean? Like
yeah, and just the profit incentives that are here for these companies, man. Like if you think about it, we're providing these companies with guaranteed customers, right? Which is never a great thing. And if you think about it in your own life, you've seen every service that you go to turn into a subscription model, right? Adobe is a great example. I know you use Adobe, right? Like you used to buy the product and then you just had it. You didn't need to upgrade, whatever. You could just be happy with what you had.
Yeah. And I find that like Adobe is one of those rare cases where a subscription model actually is good, because like before, like the product was basically inaccessible because it'd be like $500 to buy the thing outright, or and then people like me back then, we would do the thing where we like, oh, free trial, create new email, free trial, create new email, and then it's almost like you had definitely had it as long as you had new email. So when I was like 16, that's like what I would do, but
right.
Yeah, like now having it as subscription, it's like $22 for students and like, like 30 something, like 40 something for like, for the Creative Cloud thing, it's like $50, I think, if you're not a student or whatever. Like that is actually a decent version of that, but then there's things that like shouldn't be subscription models and everything like that. Like, but sorry, go more into that.
Yeah. Just the parallel I'm trying to draw is that, clearly with everything moving to a subscription model, that is better for companies' profits. Like they wouldn't have made that move if it wasn't better for them, right?
Oh yeah.
And we're signing up to this subscription to
make that money more consistently too.
Exactly. It makes the money consistent. They can predict it. And we're signing up to a subscription model for the vaccines. The boosters rolling out in Canada. I can't remember which of our health ministers it was that said that most likely it will now be, or it will soon be, to be considered fully vaccinated, you'll need to have the booster. Once everyone's allowed to have it, to be considered, and this has already happened in Israel. If you don't have your booster, you're not considered fully vaccinated. And now they're starting to work on their fourth shot. And these things aren't conspiracy theories. And I don't have I don't care to opine about how safe this vaccine is or not, because you should go talk to your doctor, and that's who should talk about your medical stuff. Like I shouldn't have an opinion.
I also think that most people who are like most people are kind of like have had the first or second dose. And as far as the safety of the vaccine, I think they're relatively safe, because like the first dose, I didn't really feel anything. And the second dose, like I was actually kind of like sick, maybe with like the disease for like a day. And I had symptoms. I know the people maybe had it for 2 days, whatever. And that's pretty much it. You know what I mean? So like, as far as like the safety or whatever of like something that Pfizer would make, like, or like Moderna would make, it's, like definitely like, yeah, what I'm trying to make is I don't think people are like stuck on like the safety aspects of the vaccine anymore. I think people are more like, it's more like how the government is using that to actually like control everyday life, control the movement of people, and restrict like basic services or just basic like things like for human beings in general, even socialization and everything. Using these mandates. And then you have like places like in Serbia where like you have like people like leaders like just straight up abusing that and using it to like using COVID restrictions to like basically like make a police state, like, you know what I mean, and stuff like that, and like, have like police like throwing people in vans and doing crazy stuff. And like that was, I don't know if that's still going on there. I mean, I think there was like another protest more recently, but like last year, like for a good like solid month or two, was like Serbia and Belarus just getting like the Serbian and Belarusian people just getting abused in their own country, like through like just like shady COVID regulations,
Mhm. Mhm.
like by their presidents, you know what I mean? So like, and it's crazy, like Belarus assassinated journalists over that, stuff like that. Like, I don't know if you saw that. Um,
Yeah.
you know what I mean? So it's, you talk about Eastern Europe and stuff like that in relation to COVID, like they've been having quite the time over there. And,
Yeah.
that's usually a pretty normal, pretty chill place,
Yeah.
from like what anyone would know. So
Yeah, it usually is. I know Poland is doing a good job of fighting back against the European Union's mandates and saying that they don't want to put them in place because Poland, I not more than anyone else because everyone's had this, but Poland very specifically always cites how much totalitarianism there's been in their country before and how they don't want to repeat it. They seem to keep that on the top of their mind, which is I think very important to go forward as a country, right? You want to keep that on top of your mind and yeah, I think we're at a point where um, we're being made comfortable with certain things, right? Uh,
true. Like the government always knowing where you are.
yeah,
It's a thing that,
yeah,
I mean, unless you're like a criminal or something and they're tracking your cell phone or tapping your cell phone or something, that's usually like not a thing that you would really have to worry about. Even if they didn't know where you are, it'd just be like, I don't know, like I don't even know how that would work. It would be like almost like an accident. Yeah.
yeah,
So
yeah. And here's the thing. I think your viewers also would be important to them because if the government can control where you're allowed to go via this health pass or whatever, right? Um, there's a lot of power and incentive to them to potentially abuse that for if you're saying other things that they disagree with, um, they could turn off your access to society
yeah.
by invalidating your QR code. I'm not saying that that's happened, but I'm saying that is a thing that could happen. And
Yeah.
I think we've just since day one of COVID, we've thrown out the idea of trying to balance things or trying to risk benefit analysis just doesn't happen
Yeah,
anymore.
exactly.
Maybe it never happened. I don't know. Maybe people never do that with government policies and everything's
Let's
always
say honestly,
reactionary. But
the like especially on the risk benefit analysis part, like as far as like vaccine, just tracking vaccinated people, which is a thing
yeah,
that's never been done before in human history, by the way. This has never been done before. And we've specifically even like, I think I was talking last time I was over at your house, like like SARS, like I mean there wasn't really a vaccine for it, but we weren't tracking people who were sick with SARS. H1N1, there was a vaccine for it. And that was like the last, like, the bird flu and swine flu and stuff like that was like the last major, like I would say like major disease that's like was flu-like in the way that it was transmitted and like the commonality of it, but also like
sure.
with like the same amount of like I would say discomfort. Although obviously coronavirus is different because like of how deadly it is, and that's what makes it so scary, and that's why everybody's freaking out about it. But
Right.
you know what I mean? Like there's like a decent chance you can die, and like it's still pretty painful to have no matter what.
Wait, so Caesar, I gotta ask you because I think
Yeah.
this is worth it just to have this conversation. When you say there's a decent chance you could die, do you know the numbers? Do you have any idea?
Numbers. I mean, I only see, unfortunately, I only really see like what's on TV. But what I do know is that the ratio of people who get it and the ratio of people who die, it's not quite like how they advertise it on TV. Because like on CNN, you can see that it'll just be like 1,000 deaths this month, 1,000. Like you just see
Right.
like straight raw numbers. Like the average person that went to high school, went to college like for a year or something, is just gonna see that and just be like, holy shit, 1,000 people died today, or 1,000 people died, whatever. And just like
Yeah.
that it's like a rolling, like almost like look at it as like the Iraq war almost, and look at it
Right.
at the same level of like 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 a seriousness.
Yeah.
um but like
Yeah.
if you look at the actual ratio of like people who get it and people who die, it's actually relatively low. It's like, if you were even to put that in like a regular like 32-to-1 type like fraction like ratio, it'd be like 40-to-1 or some shit like that. It'd be
It's less than 1% for people under the age of 30, just so you know. And I just think people
like,
need to know that. It's 99.7% survival rate for people under the age of 30. And then the people who do tend to die under the age of 30 tend to have underlying health issues. Not saying those people should die, obviously. Obviously, it's very serious when anyone dies.
I wouldn't
But
interpret it that way, but I feel you. Yeah,
you,
underlying health issues, you should die COVID.
of course not. Of course not. Yeah, but those are the people I'm saying when we have such a small and specific portion of the population, and now after 2 years, we know who this affects the most, we could keep those people safe without taking the freedom away from everyone else. And we could still give the option for those people who are most susceptible to COVID to go out and live their lives. And it's the risk that they are allowed to take. Maybe, there's like my own grandparents. My own grandmother at one point said she would rather die than not see her grandchildren. And, I think that's her decision to make, to decide if she'd rather be alive and nothing happening in her life and not be able to enjoy her life, or
Yeah.
like especially, but yeah, that's why I'm 18 months, almost 2 years into this, we have enough data to make smarter decisions than we are about this.
Yeah, and I mean, honestly, like you could even get into like how is this disease kind of sustaining itself for that long? Because like I found it kind of just kind of weird considering like how like I remember that time last year when like China got basically almost eliminated in like in like in Wuhan they constructed like those like 4 hospitals in like 20 days and basically eliminated coronavirus, like maybe not totally and completely, but like so substantially to that point where it was basically like a random like rare condition or something. Like there's like 2 or 3 people that might have that. And it's like I'm there's a lot of things that like, I mean, I'm not surprised that like a country where like the state pretty much is in charge of everything was able to do that fast, because that's half the point of even having a society like that. It's just that like 2 or 3 guys get big decisions, things just get done. You don't have to worry about corporate interest or which company gets paid what and this and that and how much money it costs. You don't have to even worry about financial costs that much if you live, healthcare is totally state owned and the state just has enough money. You know what I mean? But like, it's I just find that weird because I feel like honestly things like this should be like space travel. Like the whole world should just unite to like to like solve this. Like it's like that type of issue. But again, I'm surprised that it's still going, and I wonder whether like there are like whether there is any credence to like certain conspiracy theories that say like maybe this disease was like kind of like manufactured, or like other variants of it are being manufactured or something like that. Like maybe it's like a more man-made thing, because it it doesn't seem like the actual flu or even something like AIDS, which is like a disease in another animal that got transmitted here, or like cancers. Remember like the cancer epidemic, like 10 years ago, like 1 in 2 men actually might get cancer in their lifetime. Like that's a commercial I saw like from the 2000s when I was watching the 2000 shows, and I'm like, it used to be like cancer used to be that common, and it's not as common anymore. It's not like as likely that you could get cancer like that. You know what I mean? So
that's interesting.
So I'm just wondering like how much effort are we really putting in? It's like it's this sort of thing like the war on drugs. It's like how much effort are we actually putting in to stop this? Like obviously we're gonna say we're trying to stop this. Obviously we're gonna say that we're putting in all this effort, but like you look behind the scenes and then like you see like what you see, and you don't really see things like, for instance, like on the war on drugs, like you look behind what you see and you don't see drugs going anywhere anytime soon. In fact, you see more drugs than you ever have seen, and like drugs that there are new drugs that don't even really make sense. You know what I mean? Like if there's heroin, why is there fentanyl? You know what I mean? Like there's things like that. So it's I'm wondering like what like like what level of corruption is kind of keeping that going, because like how much money have people been making? Like there's whole new industries that were never there before, like the mask industry. Totally, like an industry that just popped out of nowhere overnight. You know what I mean? Like and it's an industry also that a lot of people can get in on. Like you could just be like a random person that usually makes like handbags or something and just make masks, and they're actually faster and easier. Things like that. And you know what I mean? So it's like I do kind of, I definitely kind of wonder like phrasing it that way, like I don't see them actually trying to get rid of the disease. I see them trying to control how many people I see them trying to control people who are already vaccinated and already trying to like not get sick, and people that basically people who are already not sick or have never been sick with it. And I see more effort being put into controlling the population with this being an excuse rather than actually like just like getting rid of the disease, doing what you need like to to do that, you know, and the infection rate isn't really that high. It's not like everybody has COVID and we're trying to like fight a disease that every other person has. And, you know, and we're just like, and, you know, they're just like sitting there going like, oh yeah, like, you know, we're trying our best to like research all the different things. So like, you know, it's not like that game Plague Inc. or whatever, like, you know, like it spread to half the world and you know what I mean? So like,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I mean, when you're talking about 1,000 cases in all of Ontario, like, you know, imagine, I don't know, like imagine those 1,000 people for real and how likely you are personally to come across one of those 1,000
literally
people.
round up that thousands of people. Like, I mean, if they're able to do this thing where like everybody has to like get a passport to like walk into a gym, like if I have to like literally scan people's IDs to like get like to work out, then like they probably should be able to just round up all 1,000 people, put them in a treatment center, and actually just like, you know, like heal them basically, and just they do like, you know, maybe it takes like a couple months to make like a government program where like, you know, they like, you know, pay whatever transportation costs it costs for like the people all over Ontario, wherever they may be. Ontario, most people live in Southern Ontario, so like the 4 or 5 or 10 or 100 people that are in like Northern Ontario, I guess would have to get bused down to a center in Southern Ontario. So
Sure,
that,
yeah.
you know what I mean? So that's like a couple $100, you know, which a lot of people, even like regular people have. So it would be one of those things where like, and it is Canada too, so they probably wouldn't even like ship you down there. They probably like send you a letter and say like you have to go down. Well, actually, it's more America. They'd send you a letter and say, do you have to go? And they wouldn't really like pay for anything. But like, yeah, Canada, they'd actually like bus you down there. They'd actually like send you a letter and like provide transportation and, you know, that could just be it, you know what I mean? Or at least just like quarantine all those cases like there, and then just like work on treatments and stuff like that, so like it can't actually spread if it's a contagious disease. If like all 1,800 people are in like one room, you know, and not able, and like, you know, and like quarantined and they're not able to spread, then they'll actually just like stop the disease even. So I mean, that's a solution, I think. I don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. I'm kind of the opinion that you would have to take potentially too drastic measures to bring it to actual zero. Like you just said, China was able to do it, of course, because they're a totalitarian country. Not a problem. That makes sense. New Zealand was able to do it because of totalitarian measures to some degree and because they're an island, so very easy to close off their borders. You know, but yeah, I think ultimately we need to be realistic that we're all humans and diseases exist, and it's unfortunate, you know, and obviously I don't know, there was so much money spent by our government that could have been spent on bolstering our hospital system so that it can handle this, because especially most people seem to realize that COVID's not going away, so shouldn't we have a more powerful hospital system for it? But my whole thing is the control, like you mentioned earlier, the control of healthy people. That doesn't make sense. That no, you don't. It's an inversion of the guilty until proven innocent. It's the exact opposite. Assume everyone is guilty. Assume everyone is sick, and then treat them as such. Treat them all as criminals. That doesn't make sense. That doesn't work. You know,
and even in those situations, like if you go to a courtroom, they'll be like, okay, but this the defendant is employed, so like they would have to be vaccinated to be employed, otherwise they wouldn't have their job. Like for instance, like my job, I can't actually work if I'm not double vaccinated. A gym is a gym. Like it's literally just, you know, as far as like the way it transmitted, like that's the number one place that COVID would commonly transmit is a gym. You know what I mean? So like it's I say that it's one of those things for sure where it's like that's weird. I don't know where my thought went, but like, yeah, I don't know.
No, it's all good, man. But yeah, that's my concern. Treating healthy people as if they're sick. A healthy person who doesn't have COVID, whether they're vaccinated or unvaccinated, is the same thing. It's a person who can't spread the disease. They don't have it.
Yeah.
So currently, you know, if there's 1,000 cases in all of Ontario, that means there's 7.9 million or however many Ontarians who don't have COVID, who are no danger to anyone. So treating them as if they're sick doesn't work, and it doesn't work on the long term. It worked at the beginning, maybe to give us enough time to think about this and figure out how deadly this disease is, etc. But people don't have, like, most people don't have COVID. Most people haven't even gotten COVID in Canada. In America, it's almost half the population that's gotten COVID, but in Canada, most people haven't gotten COVID. at the front door of nursing homes, etc., you could put rapid tests to make sure it doesn't ever get into the building with seniors, or as best as possible, or anywhere else that there's vulnerable populations. But then otherwise, people need to go back to living their lives. It doesn't make sense. This is not worth living like this, in my opinion. And then also this small portion of people who are unvaccinated, to control them indefinitely. They're now saying indefinite. So just are we actually as a society okay with saying that 20 to 5%, however many are left, of the population should just never get to leave the country anymore, because they can't leave now. You can't get on a plane without it. You should never be allowed to leave the country, travel within the country, go to a restaurant, have a job at most places. Are we okay with that? 20 to 5%. Even just on a practical level, if you treat a population like that for too long, they're going to rise up. That's not a good idea.
Yeah, it only takes 3% of a population to overthrow a government, but it also only 25% of your workforce is being basically deleted, but still there.
It's a really bad idea.
It's a bad idea for the country. It's not efficient for them. But I mean, for us, as people, we're not the country, we're not the government. It's what do we do? Because we would have to kind of I think it would be best for us to even create alternative systems around outside of that and around that. And everything. And I mean, maybe if it was kind of in the US, where for instance, I was watching a story on local Buffalo news or whatever about how Erie County just basically voted to not have the mask mandate, just to repeal it, on a county level, just that's a similar sort of thing that I hope we can do, maybe here and stuff like that. I don't know if I mean, the way our voting system is different. We don't usually, unfortunately, in Canada, we don't really get to vote on individual propositions. It's not like we can just I can go to City Hall, make a proposition end mask mandate. Okay, let's all vote on Prop 25. Ending the mask mandate. That's how marijuana got legalized in California for medical use. It's just a couple people got some paperwork together, petitioned, and it's not like every marijuana user made marijuana legal there. It's a group of marijuana users did that. So that's
right.
That's the sort of thing that could.
You're right. That doesn't apply to us here. I gotta hop off in a second here, but I just want to say, you're asking what can we do. A big thing is anyone who is vaccinated should treat people regularly and not ask their friends or family whether they're vaccinated, because that doesn't matter. You should be friends with who you want to be friends with, and especially a small portion of the population who's already being kicked out of society shouldn't be kicked out of your friend group. I think that's a really bad idea, especially for people's mental health, right? I know people who've been uninvited to their family Christmases and stuff like that. Very strange. Very strange.
Cool. Yeah. The new Democrat versus Republican thing.
Yeah, there are places that don't check for vaccine passports, at the front door, restaurants and stuff like that. Support those businesses, give them some money because they're against discrimination. That's a good idea, And then if you have any personal sway over anything, if you I'm a freelancer, right, and I can hire other video people, right? If there's people who aren't employed right now and I can hire them, I prefer that to someone who has gainful employment because of their vaccination status. And then yes, the other aspect of this could be a gray market. There could be, the unvaccinated could start trading it amongst themselves entirely and kind of split off from the economy a little bit, and then we get none of what they have. So it's a bad idea for all of us. But yeah, I gotta hop off shortly, man. Thanks for having me on.
I appreciate it. I feel like you didn't get to actually talk about the wait, is that the only thing to talk about? Is this the indefinite extension of the vaccine passport thing and all that, or yeah?
I mean, that's my main issue, is because that's the biggest one about control. I do see masks as a good test for who will comply to certain things, and whether we can whether the government can then impose further restrictions. I think that was a good test by them at the very front end. So yeah, I'm personally a everyone should be able to do what they want, type person. And if you want to wear a mask for the rest of your life, if you want to stay inside for the rest of your life, that's fine. That's going to be safer. Correct. That's going to be safer. It's safer if you never drive again. So you do what you do what you need to keep yourself safe. But the rest of the world should continue on, in my opinion.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with you. I agree with you on that.
Yeah.
Yeah, man, I definitely agree with you with that. Like I think my opinion on all that is that at the time, especially when like the pandemic was like, at its peak and stuff like that, it was definitely like everything kind of made sense. Lockdown measures, wearing masks, doing like just like any sort of like way to actually, you know, like prevent the virus from spreading or like or anything like that.
Mhm.
Um, but I started getting it started getting a little dodgy when it was like, okay, vaccine passports at first, I didn't really think too much of it. But then when it started being like, okay, we're gonna make a scannable version, like I know the government, I know how like those types of people think. It's like, okay, well, how do we like once like any sort of capitalist person starts thinking, okay, how do I make the vaccine passport better? It's like you're in trouble. Because it's like, okay, well, how do I like, they'll start like, what do I say? They'll start working on that on the vaccine passport and trying to make that perfect and make that work and make that like, like functional basically. And then they'll ignore things like literally like healthcare. So like we were saying before, like how much money has been put into like all like the software and development and like the databases of these vaccine passports, make like even the QR codes, everything. How much money has been put
Yeah.
into that has not been put into like hospital equipment, PPE,
Yeah. Or just
just,
fair wages for our nurses.
fair wages, things like that, or just literally research and development for like cures, not vaccines, even like because if you're
Yeah.
researching a vaccine, you're not researching a cure, so you
Yeah,
have to, you
you're
know,
exactly right. And in America, there's and Japan and Brazil and Bulgaria, there's many doctors who found certain combinations of drugs which lower your likelihood of getting to the hospital in the first place, which is important. It's important for us to not have people get to the hospital, for us to not talk about that at all. For most people, 2 years into this pandemic, to think if I get COVID, my move is to stay home unless I feel so sick, then I go to the hospital. That's wrong. You should be able to get something. We know some certain things help,
yeah.
even if they're not perfect, they help. But yeah, I do gotta run, man.
All right,
It was
sorry about that. Yeah. But
yeah, no,
Pete, thank you so much. This has been Marcel. He's a freelance, video creator and everything like that. Um, really cool guy. Been my friend for a while. Yeah, glad to talk with you about this. Eh? Peace.
yeah, thanks for giving me a chance, man.
All
Take it
right.
easy.